So, the slight theme for this week has been centered around branding. How do you stand out? How do you brand yourself? How do you position yourself when it comes to your specific career in mind? So, today's presentation is called Master Career Branding, Become the Go-To Authority in Your Field. Now, of course, I always have this sort of question, but essentially, what if you understood that actually the top performers within any sort of career space are top performers not only because of their technical expertise, but mainly because of something else? Now, of course, don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, if you don't know me already, my name is Michael Tabirade. I'm an independent management consultant and founder of the consultancy, The Mastery Group Limited. Now, let's get into it. Let's explore what it means, at least from my standpoint, to be a go-to branded expert or authority within your specific career landscape. So the first thing is define your unique value proposition. So what do I mean by this? When I say all of this stuff, this is not necessarily going to be anything that is like crazily new or anything like that. This is probably going to be a revision of something, stuff that you know already, stuff that I've probably spoken about. But all I'm doing is breaking it down, okay? So your unique value proposition is how you position yourself in the market. That's essentially what it is. How do you stand out? And really, your unique value proposition needs to be able to talk to what you specifically do, who you help, and how you help them. But the uniqueness of how you help them should highlight some sort of benefit. So this benefit could be centered around, are you being more efficient? Are you more affordable? Is there higher quality? Is it something that has never been done before? So is it innovative by nature? Okay, that's the difference between iteration and innovation, a conversation me and my good friend Katrina talk about all the time. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you need to be able to understand how you can blend your experiences and talk to the specific things that you have achieved. So calculate everything. I'll give you a great example. So today I was working through an action log with one of the project support individuals, and we go through all of the actions, update them, all of that kind of jazz there. But behind that, I've created a calculator that essentially calculates what is completed, what's been closed, what's blocked, what's pending, all of this kind of stuff there. So I know if I am on track to making sure that I'm at least 90% ahead of the game when it comes to completion and closed items. Okay, so if the other 10% is something that's blocked or pending or in progress or whatever it may be, I know that I'm on track. But I only know that based on the fact that I've set myself up for success from the beginning. I've been able to calculate that. I know for a fact that I've had 140 odd items, and of course I don't capture every single action, but the majority of actions I've caught since I started back last year, late last year, whatever it may be. And so I only know that because I've tracked that information. So you have to be in a position where you either go back retrospectively or you currently put that into your practice to acknowledge how well you've been doing and measure impact. Okay, so you measure completion rates, you measure deliverables that you've actually achieved, aligned to objectives, aligned to your project brief or project initiation documents or spec or whatever it may be. So get to a point where you're articulating this stuff. But the other thing is you have to lean into your strengths. So when it comes to the unique value proposition, maybe there is something that you're pretty good at. And so with this in mind, this specific thing may be, for me, it may be centered around the ability to coordinate project managers to actually achieve their deliverables. Or maybe it's my ability to manage governance from a program and or project level. I'm not saying this is my thing, but I'm just giving you an example. The point being made is you have to be able to identify that, but back it up with evidence. And you may have evidence, but you haven't had the time and opportunity to be clear about what that is. And so when you have all of that information, you put yourself in a position of strength, because it means that you know exactly what you've delivered on, you know exactly what you're good at, and you know exactly how to, or at least what to talk about when it comes to marketing your products and or services, especially within the contracting or consulting space or career space in general. So hopefully that's given you a clear idea. So that's part of how you set up your UVP. And of course you can watch previous videos, especially the ones for this week, where I talk quite a bit about how you can develop your brand. So it all interlinks. The second thing is cultivate great people skills in your brand. What do I mean by this? This is all centered around emotional intelligence. So I'm not going to talk too heavy about it, but great people skills is basically great communication in every way, shape and form. But in a nutshell, you have to be able to develop the ability to observe well. Read the room. Read the room. There is something, between reading the room, understanding your brief, and then meeting in the middle to understand how you're going to operate. And sometimes you only have milliseconds in order to approach it or communicate things in the right way. And so how do you develop this skill? Well, I believe, for me at least anyway, it starts off with understanding how to observe one's own emotions in different conditions or environments. And then knowing how that information can be utilized to help you better or help me better manage my emotions. Because then if I know how to do that for myself, then I may have a bit of a theory in terms of how I do that with other people. And so your ability to be good at doing that is key. I think another thing that is really important or useful is feedback. Okay, so feedback from individuals. So maybe you set up some situations where you have one-to-one meetings. Okay, so let's say, for example, you're part of a project. Maybe you have weekly meetings with these individuals, progress updates, reviewing risks and issues, ensuring that there is some sort of feedback mechanism, okay, that's fed in and recorded, is key, because that feedback will help you understand how you can improve, but also how the other individual can improve. But why is this important for branding? Because if you have this information, you know what to utilize in order to attract people the right way. So this is why people skills are really, really important. Now, of course, all of this stuff helps with relationship development and all of that kind of jazz there. But the key is allowing people to feel like they're heard. That's the key. If you can make people feel like you're listening to what they're actually saying, okay, like you're connected to what they're saying, then of course you've got a winning formula. Having the right presence, smiling, good eye contact, all of that stuff is a given. Smelling nice, you don't want to smell bad, is all important. But sometimes we can't be bothered. But the things that we can't be bothered about right now are the things that really stand out. These are the things that truly do become important, quote unquote, when it comes to developing a right branding person, at least anymore, face to face or whatever it may be. And I guess with the whole communication aspect, you have to be clear of your story. What is your story? What is your expertise? Revise that, understand it, know how to talk about it. All of that kind of jazz there. But even if you don't revise this stuff, okay, because it doesn't have to be sort of like an exam, it has to be sincere. And you have to be able to match the authentic self with the professional self and how you communicate that to people within the sort of like working space or working environment. So really, really important stuff to bear in mind when it comes to all of this kind of stuff. So the next thing is build a consistent online presence. Now, not everyone's going to agree with this. Not everyone's going to build an online presence, but I'm going to try and go through this extremely quickly so that you have some sort of idea. Now, of course, with some individuals, you're not necessarily going to be consulting or contracting, but let's say, for example, you are doing that stuff, then there's 3 things that you need to bear in mind or consider. So number 1, have some sort of legal structure. So maybe a limited company. Number 2, support that legal structure with your own proprietary sort of like setup. So that is having some sort of, let's say, for example, IP protection. This could be copyrights, trademarks, all of that kind of stuff there. Number 3, having your website and or name sort of like registered. Okay, so your domain name, your URL. So michaeltabirade.com or your company website or whatever it may be. Then obviously, once you have all of the stuff that's lined up in terms of your brand, because you understand how you deliver things, okay, and this is something I've spoken about in previous videos, especially ones before this one, You want to make sure that your website has the key features, kind of like what you'd have on a LinkedIn profile, okay? So you have your header image, the main sort of image that has the headline information and the subtitle as well. You have a call to action, so maybe that call to action is to book in a call or whatever it may be. Then you have sort of like key features that an individual may get if they're working with you in a consulting or contracting capacity. Then you would have, let's say for example, key benefits, okay, or the methodology that you have, so this is talking to what they can expect to get, etc., etc. Then you may have a testimonial section, or case study section, or whatever it may be. People can contact you, all of that kind of stuff there. You want to have that. So whether that's for your website, whether that's for LinkedIn, whether that's for Instagram, whatever it may be, you have that information. Some people like to have a link tree. You don't have too many things on there, but you want to direct people to things that make sense. So this may be a white paper, a report, some sort of opt-in, or a discovery call. Okay, maybe that's with a recruiter or with somebody else. Okay, depending on what you're setting up, whether it's independent or not. And so these are things that you want to have in mind. But in addition to that, it is having content. Okay, content that is consistent, that has clear messaging, and that is congruent. Really, really important stuff. And so if you have those connect free, then you put yourself in a position where people are more likely going to want to buy into your stuff. And so maybe you want to have a cadence of daily videos, or videos 3 times a week or once a week, whether this is on YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever it may be. There is this whole thing centered around LinkedIn being the space where you need to be. I agree to an extent, if I'm honest with you. But of course, people who are killing it on LinkedIn, of course, will 100% agree. So of course, it's all based on your audience and all based on what you're trying to do. But typically what I've seen is a good trifecta effect is having some sort of video platform, okay, or podcasting platform. So this could be Spotify or YouTube. Some sort of like, I would say social media, typical social media platform like a LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. And then having email, okay? So you could use a Substack, or you could use whatever you use, okay? So hopefully these things ring true. But the things that you talk about, what do you talk about? You talk about lessons learned. You talk about your experiences. You talk about your testimonials. You talk about examples where you've done certain things. You talk about your opinion on stuff. You talk about contrarian things. You give your viewpoint on things that are happening within the markets, the news, socioeconomic factors in relation to your industry. All of these things you can talk to. And you can get things like generative AI to support you, but that will give you generic information. So you have to be able to position yourself in a way where you have your stamp in it. So there's a bit of a pillar framework that you need to develop. Maybe develop 5 to 8 different key pillar topics that you can talk on, just to trigger your mind. And you may stick to that pillar stuff, but it has to be something that aligns to your audience. Maybe your audience is recruiters, maybe your audience is hiring managers, maybe it's other people like this, like you, who are in your specific situation in terms of your role. And so with that all in mind, it's all based on your audience and what you're willing to do. Okay, so bear all of this stuff in mind. But consistency is key. Consistency is key, and stick to a certain sort of visual branding that makes sense. The fourth thing is leveraging storytelling to humanize your brand. Now, you may have seen, there's one video that I've done, which is called, So You Want to Become a Contractor. I think I did this maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago. I don't even remember now. That talks about my whole journey, my whole story behind how I got into contracting. And I think the reason at the time why it got the views it got, because I don't get many views, if I'm honest with you, I haven't noticed. But I'm getting there, is pushing up slowly but surely. That connected with people, especially during a time that made sense. So if you know the timing is right in terms of the market conditions for your audience, and you're being sincere and you're just saying what you're saying, then people are going to connect. Okay, people are 100% going to connect. I mean, it's like, if we think about the current situation we're in right now, it's difficult. Many people are trying to find jobs. Many people want to make more money. People not liking the UK at the moment. They want to go elsewhere. And so me talking about this stuff is hopefully giving people not just hope, but some insights, some strategies, some practicalities that they can utilize. Whether they knew this information or not, it's a reminder, because it's the stuff I'm doing. I'm not sharing anything that I'm not doing myself. And if I do that, then I'll usually say, I've got this from this source, X, Y, and Z. So stories are great. Stories are great for connecting with people on a deeper level. So if we keep it moving, the fifth thing is network strategically and authentically. Now, I don't need to go into this too heavily, okay? I think it's self explanatory. And the reason I'm not going to go into this too heavily is because I've spoken about this before. But what I will say is, like I've spoken about the hidden job market in one of my videos. And I think there are two ways in which you can network. You could be very organic with it, and maybe you have the mind and brain to remember to message people, okay, which takes us time and skill and capacity and all that kind of stuff there. Or you can develop your own CRM. Whether you use Notion, whether you use Notion or something like Google Sheets to develop your CRM, then it doesn't really matter. The point you made is you have the name, you have the role, you have where you've met them, you have a bit where you talk about what you spoke about last, and you have a reminder, a date where you get back to those people. That you could do with recruiters, 100%. 100%. They're not going to know. It's for your own sort of like management. And then you have a comment section that basically updates you with what's happened. You may have a status sort of like column that talks to your intention to message them, the fact that you have messaged them, you've tried 1, 2, 3, whatever it may be. So maybe that's a more sort of like specific way to do it, but that requires some time. You need to sit down each week and look at it and approach it that way. Whether you use this in your projects, whether you use this professionally or personally, it's totally up to you, but it's definitely something that you can utilize for sure. So hopefully that gives you some insights. One thing I've written here is give value first, share insights or support others. I think this is underrated at times. Sometimes I do this a bit too much, and some of you may agree, others won't. Of course, there's always going to be others. That, sometimes, whether it's myself or even yourself, may overshare. But what that does do, whether people sort of like engage with you or not, they recognize you as maybe the expert or somebody who fancies themselves as knowing stuff. But from my standpoint, it's because I just like to help people. But what that means is, you help a lot of people for free, and sometimes at your detriment, should I say, your energy is sucked. And you may feel a certain way or whatever it may be. So there is a balance to this, okay? I have to caveat that. If you're meeting someone for the first time, if you can provide value, if you can provide them with an insight, do it. But there has to be this neat balance between providing so much value versus at some point in the end, they providing you value. And it's not going to be in the same channel necessarily. Sometimes that value comes 5 years down the line. Sometimes that value comes 3 months down the line. Sometimes that value is in the form of them connecting you with something. Sometimes that value is just in having someone you can talk to who has that experience. So you won't know that straight away. But the vibe that you have with this individual based on the connection through networking, okay, so it's really connecting rather than networking, should define how you plan to move. So hopefully that makes sense to you. You get an idea behind what I'm aiming to say. The sixth thing is invest in continuous learning and development. And of course, this is obvious, but do we always do it? I mean, let's say, for example, you want to become a certain type of role or whatever it may be. Let's say you want to move from a head of department or a lead to a director. What training have you put in place? How seriously are you looking to take this? And I guess there's a multitude of things, but do you have your own PDP? Okay, professional development plan, or even personal development plan. As a coach who's trained under the European Mentoring Coaching Council, we had to have had that. And I knew of this concept before I even taught it, but I didn't always follow it. But the fact that I had to basically evidence and show my PDP highlighted the fact that actually I need to take this stuff seriously. So if you wanted to become a director, as an example, what are you doing to get to that space? Are you speaking to other directors? Do you have a mentor? Are you jumping on different associations? Maybe you're jumping on the Institute of Leadership as an example. That's a little bit of a promotion there, as I'm a trustee for the Institute of Leadership, or other similar sort of like associations. Are you taking on a course? Maybe this is an ILM course, so the Institute for Leadership and Management, that gives you that level 5 qualification or level 7 qualification that positions you in the right way. Do you feel like you need to do an MBA? Like, whether you feel you need to do this or have to do this based on the feedback you've got from other directors within this space will be telling. Are you connecting with people online? Are you listening to things via podcast or YouTube to feed your mind? What is your PDP? So this is what I mean by sort of like learning and development. And you can see that I kind of have an undertone between being very structured and rigorous, but also being fluid and flexible. There's a fine balance, and you kind of need to work out what works for you. But it needs to work, and it needs to be consistent. So hopefully that gives you some insights in terms of what that looks like. And of course, all of this stuff is self-explanatory, but I just wanted to talk on that PDP point a bit more. Now, before I continue, what's the one thing you want people to associate with your career brand? Okay, what's the one thing? I say all of this stuff before, okay? All of this stuff before, because it all kind of contributes to the branding element for your career. It just does. The more arsenal you have to your Omo, so I'm saying words so weird today. What's going on with me? Omo, you know. I'm not even Nigerian. Anyway, the more you have to your ammo, the better. The better, I'm telling you. And you want to kind of distance yourself in your category in some way, shape, or form. And by default, you do that anyway. However, it's not necessarily more is better, but quality is better, always, I'm telling you. Not necessarily at the beginning, because maybe you have to do more in order to understand what quality looks like and then lean on quality. But quality is always important for sure. And of course, if you're looking to get any sort of mentoring or coaching, then let's do a discovery call, and then let's see if we can work together if you're committed to this whole process. The seventh thing is embrace vulnerability and authenticity. So quite simply, I feel like, at least anyway, just being you is winning right now. Would you ever think it? It's winning. So your ability to be comfortable in your skin and let others in is how you win in terms of this whole branding space. Now, can you do that completely? Some may say yes, some may say no. There's a whole philosophy or psychological concept, should I say, called self-monitoring, which you can look up. It's probably somewhere in the middle between the two. But people can feel a sense of sincerity. Like, if you're overly scripted, if you're overly done up, then people are going to be raising questions. I have notes here. I have my slides, which obviously pop up. So they pop up here. Okay. These are just anchors for me. So am I being completely authentic? Some would say no, because I've got these aids. But the majority of the time, if I am looking here and then looking there, I'm just getting quick triggers. So I make sure I have a certain level of structure. But you're still getting me. Do you understand? You're still getting that stuff. And so people are drawn to that sort of like space. So learn to be comfortable. So, like, narrow the gap between professional person and authentic person. You know, apparently the Japanese say this, and I don't think it's the Japanese per se, but it's a Japanese proverb at least. There is the face that everyone sees. There is the face that your friends and family see, and there is the face that only you see. And the smaller the gap between all three of those different faces, the more people will connect with you, because they feel like they can trust you. It's all about trust, I'm telling you. Someone know, like, and trust, that's the process of it. So that leans into your brand, because the brands that are like, oh, I really like this guy, or I hear what they're saying, not everyone's going to like you. It's just, it is what it is. So what? Move on. As long as they're not rude, it doesn't really matter. So that gives you a sense of likability, so to speak. The next thing is showcase your expertise through content creation. And I think I kind of covered this already, but you need to be able to prove that you are the person you say you are. And so if you go onto my LinkedIn, you'll see, I'm guessing, about 15 recommendations, maybe 20, I don't know. If you go onto my website, michaeltabirade.com, you'll see different testimonials there. If you go to masterygroup.com, you'll see case studies. This is all proof. My CV proves that I'm competent and I talk about specific achievements because I utilize the PAR model, problem, action, result. And so you have to find ways to really sort of like let people know that you're the right person. So the decision to hire you or to bring you on board or to work with you is easier. It just is. It makes sense to do it, but it requires you to do that admin that you may not want to do. Whether that is question your clients afterwards, or, you know, get them to fill out a questionnaire, or do some sort of video shoot or whatever it may be. It may feel awkward doing this stuff, but you need to ask them. This is how it works. You need to break it down. So really share sort of like your wins over the years. Really, really helps. Obviously, there are things you can do like set up a newsletter. I think that's a great opportunity right now, especially if you've got a way to attract different people. And that newsletter, you can use something like Substack. And the reason why Substack works is because it has that social element to it. I don't think there's an algorithm per se, but there's a social element to it, and it's buzzing at the moment. There's also LinkedIn newsletters that works as well. There's LinkedIn in itself and other social media platforms that work. There's YouTube. I obviously think YouTube is a great approach and method. So these are all different ways in which you can utilize content to really highlight your expertise. You also want to manage your reputation with integrity. So with this in mind, I think it's important to understand that your word needs to be your bond. And how do you ensure this? Well, don't lie. That's the first thing. Don't lie. But also, you need to under-promise and over-deliver. That's what that comes down to. Under-promise and over-deliver always. Your reputation can be damaged so easily. I'm telling you. Even me doing these videos is a risk. However, for me inherently, providing that value is worth more than the potential risk of it being brought down in terms of reputation and everything else. So I'm slowly trying to build goodwill. I'm slowly trying to build trust. I'm slowly trying to build all this kind of stuff there. So manage your reputation well. Don't just say yes to everything. Unless you're in that mode where you need to get experience. That's different. But when you're at a certain level of stage, you have to be very strategic in terms of what you say yes to, what you say no to. What does that look like for your track record? So don't upset anyone unnecessarily. Unless they upset you, then even then, you think about it, okay? So, bonus tip, as we always say, align your brand with your long-term goals. Very simple. This is not even like some aha moment or whatever it may be. But you should be able to make sure that your brand fits in with your future goals. And so this is why it's so important to start with, who do you want to become? And this is why I started off with like helping you think about like, where do you want to go? Like the whole director thing that I was talking about, all that kind of stuff there. Because if you can, it's like me doing the program management thing. I was doing a lot of project-based stuff before, but I never had the formal title of project manager, okay? But because I positioned myself that way, okay, so that was based on what I wrote in terms of roles, responsibilities, Boolean keywords when it comes to CVs and all of that stuff there, speaking to the right people. I thought, okay, naturally, it makes sense for me to do a program management qualification, which I did. And essentially, my manager at the time allowed me to do it because I guess it was luck, but I asked them. Also did the change management qualification, which gave me even more oomph to change and package how I do things, because I wanted to become a program manager. And then I was telling recruiters when I started to go into the whole contracting space that program management is what I'm looking to do. I didn't even say looking to do. I'm looking for a program manager role. I told them. Not, no. Program manager. That's what it is. And lo and behold, that is the space I'm in my consulting and contracting career. So speak what you seek until you see what you said, as my wife always says. Speak what you seek until you see what you've said. So hopefully that gives you a clean idea. And of course, quarterly reviews, or however, far apart you do your reviews, is always going to be important. I'm not necessarily going to go through this stuff because hopefully you've been listening and understanding. But essentially, whether it's your UVP, developing your EQ, aligning your brand across all online platforms, or sharing your journey online, or networking properly and authentically, this all contributes to your career brand. And of course, this contributes to other types of branding as well. Now, of course, if you want to connect with me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, YouTube. So subscribe to this channel. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. And if you have subscribed, then hit the notification bell. What I forget to say is you want to subscribe to my newsletter also, where you get typically some sort of like insight each week. And it's very lengthy stuff. It's really insightful. Then you can click on the link below. Of course, if you want a competitive edge as a business leader in today's current climate, then again, check out the discovery form below. Now, of course, if you want to see more videos centered around portfolio careers, contracting, leadership, all of that kind of stuff there, then don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.